Our story begins where the last issue left off, as Spider-Gwen is hurtling towards the ground after an encounter with the Vulture. Thinking fast, the young hero is able to save her own life by using her webbing, which allows the girl to safely glide down to the ground. Though successful, Gwen accidentally knocks herself unconscious after crashing into a garbage dump. Waking up later, Gwen hears a voice and is shocked to discover none other than Peter Porker, also known as the Amazing Spider-Ham, who is standing right in front of her. Confused, as Spider-Ham does not belong to this universe, it soon becomes apparent that this is a hallucination likely triggered by her fall. Peter explains that this is the only version of him that Gwen can look at without feeling sick at the thought of her dead boyfriend. After realizing that she dropped her phone during her encounter with the Vulture, she soon panics, as every secret Spider-Woman has is on that phone. Sure enough, the police find her phone at the scene where Gwen first encountered the Vulture. Gwen's father, Gwen Stacy, is there to investigate, and recognizes the phone and bag found there as his daughter's. Soon, George is questioned by detectives DeWolf and Frank Castle, who are quick to remind Stacy that they are the ones in charge of investigating this Spider-Woman. But Castle looks over this scene and says it is a dead end. They aren't really interested in finding Gwen, as Castle is only concerned about her apparent connection to the Kingpin. George points out that the Kingpin is in jail, but DeWolf and Castle aren't convinced the leader still isn't influencing the streets from behind bars. The two go to interrogate the prisoner, and as Stacy was the one who arrested the man in the first place, they bring him along too. There, the Kingpin says he has nothing to do with this Spider-Woman, and can't possibly be doing anything while in solitary confinement. Frustrated, Frank Castle threatens to just save himself the hassle of due process and kill the Kingpin right here, until they are interrupted by a phone call. Matt Murdock, the Kingpin's lawyer, is on the other end of the line. He says that his client Wilson Fisk is innocent and a model prisoner, and threatens legal action if the cops continue to harass this man. Castle agrees and relents, but not before telling Murdock that once he has evidence, nothing will stop him from taking down the Kingpin permanently. As Matt Murdock is hung up on, he is revealed to have been in the middle of a violent confrontation with a captive Vulture. The alternative version of Daredevil viciously kills one of the bird's pets. He explains that Spider-Woman turned down the Kingpin, so it will be Fisk, and only Fisk, who is allowed to take the young girl's life. If the Vulture robs the mob boss of this, the wannabe villain will pay dearly for it. Toombs panics and says he is pretty sure the girl is not dead. Using his powers, Matt is able to tell he isn't being lied to, but he wants proof that Gwen is still alive. The Vulture is then ordered to capture Spider-Woman and bring her to Murdock. Gwen wakes up back home and is surprised to find her friends and former bandmates Glory and Mary Jane are there with her. They explain that a friend picked her up from a bar and brought her here, and they are both worried for Gwen's well-being. Distracted, Gwen says she can't talk right now and tries to leave, but before she can, Mary Jane states that they and the band need Gwen in their lives. Outside, Gwen is still hallucinating Spider-Ham. As he enjoys a corn dog, the imaginary version of Peter chastises her behavior and says she is acting as a superhero for all the wrong reasons. Meanwhile, George Stacy and Frank Castle are at a bar. Stacy mentions how he heard that Castle is a family man too, and suggests they both go home to their loved ones. Castle is unmoved by these words, and decides instead to go back to work. Frustrated, Stacy smashes a mirror at the bar and leaves. As he walks the city streets, the detective blames himself for Gwen's behavior, when he is suddenly approached from behind. Though the older Stacy assumes his daughter is here for her phone back, she is actually here to talk to her father. Hello and welcome to Comic Island. My name is Arden, and this is my recap and review of Spider-Gwen number 2. So for those of you who watched the last issue will know that while I saw potential in this series, I was a little disappointed by the first comic. Number 2, on the other hand, was a much more enjoyable read overall. Now that we've gone past this comic's awkward start, I am really starting to enjoy this series unfold. Once again, I like seeing big Marvel characters like Frank Castle and Matt Murdock in a new light. Castle is particularly interesting in this comic, and while he very much shows traits and behaviors similar to the 616 version of the Punisher, as a police detective, I feel there's a lot of potential for this character to do some pretty crazy things. It's also cool to see Murdock as a brutal enforcer for the Kingpin, especially knowing what 616 Matt's relationship is like with the Kingpin. It's an interesting comparison, as Matt proves himself to work quite well with Fisk in this comic, and I'm looking forward to see more of these two in action as the bad guys of this story. In fact, the supporting cast as a whole are really well done in this comic. I don't know what to expect from anyone, as they are all distinct people from the versions that we know in 616. Mary Jane really stands out in this issue, but Gwen Stacy, the Vulture, the Kingpin, and Detective DeWolf are all quite fascinating, and now I really want to see more of them. I'm starting to also grow on the art style of this comic, though I still don't understand why Gwen wears neon-colored slippers as part of her costume. That's weird, but okay, whatever, no big deal. And it's kind of a funny little choice now that I've started noticing it. The only part of this comic I could really do without is the sudden presence of Spider-Ham. That's very gimmicky, and a character that I'm getting a little sick of after Spider-Verse. His presence here, even when ironically and hilariously eating a hot dog, add nothing to the story and makes the whole experience feel like it was written by a bad writer. I'm not saying Jason Latour is a hack, though there are moments of weak writing in this comic. I just don't think he needs to rely on trying to be funny through joke characters like Spider-Ham. It's campy, completely unneeded in this comic, and a real distraction from an otherwise solid story. Luckily, and mercifully, Peter Porker is not heavily featured in this story, and I otherwise enjoyed reading Spider-Gwen number 2. This was a much better issue than the first one, so I recommend you check this one out for yourself. If you would like to learn more about Gwen Stacy and her origins, you should check out our complete reading order for Spider-Verse, available now on our website. We also have a Facebook page and Twitter account you should definitely check out as well. You can find the links to all of these in our video description. And finally, don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep reading comics.